What's up, YouTube world? Jeff Lerner here, and in this video we're going to be tackling this age-old question, this question that I've been hearing debated pretty much since I became an entrepreneur, which is, should you pursue money or should you pursue your passion? And there's kind of two competing philosophies. One says, well, if you make a lot of money, then you'll have a lot of money, which means you can afford to pursue your passions without them being tainted by capitalistic greed or the need to make money. And then on the other hand, you have the philosophy that says, well, if you pursue your passion, then you'll, quote, never work a day in your life, and the money will just naturally come because of, metaphysical, universal energy field principles that say, just like when you're positive and you're in your vibe and you're resonating with the world, then like money is just drawn to you, kind of like the law of attraction or the secret type philosophy. We're going to kind of work through this conversation, and it really is an age-old debate that I've been hearing people say or express their pretty strong opinions about, like literally since I became an entrepreneur. And I became an entrepreneur in my teens, and so I started talking to older people, business owners, people that seem to have their life together and have some relative control and freedom in their life. And I would ask them, and I literally got competing opinions that could not be reconciled. They were like binary perspectives on the question that I thought, well, for somebody to be right in this case, somebody has to be wrong. Should I be pursuing money so that later in life I can pay for my passions? Or should I be pursuing my passion so that later in life, naturally, I'll attract the money? I have some strong opinions about it now, 25 years later, after frankly having tried it both ways, and I'm going to share them with you. Money or passion? Before we get into the question, I will ask if you would not mind liking this video. It helps me get more love from the YouTube algorithm and create more of these videos for you. And if you're enjoying my content in general, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Appreciate your support. So, money or passion? First, I want to refer to what I think is ultimately more important than money or passion, which is happiness. Ideally, whatever the answer to the question is, should we focus on money or should we focus on passion? The answer should be whichever one over time produces the most happiness, right? So what is the relationship between happiness and these elements? I think we can all understand that there is a relationship between between happiness and passion. When we're doing something that we're passionate about, most of us would describe ourselves as pretty happy in that moment. The question is, long term, is passion going to produce a sustained happiness, or is it just sort of a fleeting temporal happiness? And ditto for money. Does money just produce kind of an endorphin rush when we get it right then? How does money correlate long term with happiness? Just like how does passion correlate long term with happiness? Well, I have not seen any really good studies on the correlation between passion and happiness, partly because usually studies are funded by money, and studying the relationship between passion and happiness doesn't actually benefit any employer or any government. I guess you could say indirectly it does by potentially informing the mental health of a society over time, but usually studies are driven by a little more direct monetary result than that. There is a study correlating money and happiness, and it was done in 2010 at Princeton University by a couple economists, and they studied the relationship between money and happiness. And what they found is there is a very tight, direct relationship between money and happiness up to about $75,000 a year for the average married couple. So that means two people, potentially more if there's kids involved. So let's say between 3 and 4 total people living off of $75,000 a year. That was the point at which the relationship between money and happiness was the most direct. And above $75,000 a year, the relationship started to decouple, meaning the things that drive happiness above $75,000 a year are not directly related to money. And conversely, making more money above $75,000 a year doesn't have a direct impact on happiness. But below that threshold, you go, 65,000, 55,000, 45,000, happiness starts to deteriorate. And you can kind of understand why. And granted, this was 2010. Here we are as I'm shooting this video 10 years later, with inflation and some of the economic vicissitudes of the last 10 years, especially because 2010 was kind of coming out of that recession. We could probably reasonably say 75,000 is now more like 90 or 100. But there's kind of that threshold where below that, things are tighter, you're having to work more, you're having to make more consequential sacrifices in your budget. And so life gets harder. But above it, there's really no correlation. So that seems to inform, one potential answer to the question that says, well, pursuing passion, we know that passion, roughly is going to equate to happiness, at least in the short term. Pursuing passion is great as long as it doesn't relegate you to a life below the threshold where money and happiness are correlated, right? So if there's a way to pursue your passion that gets you to $100,000 a year or $90,000 or whatever the new updated $75,000 a year figure is, that's awesome. If you can pursue your passion and get as high as you can get on the threshold of where money correlates to happiness, then that's amazing. But if pursuing your passion is going to resign you to earning significantly less than the threshold where money correlates to happiness, then it stands to reason that pursuing your passion is going to have a consequence or a liability of less than full happiness or less than ideal happiness, right? So like for me, in my 20s, I was a jazz musician. I'd play bars, I'd play nightclubs, I'd play dances, I'd play weddings, I'd play society gigs. Anything that was getting paid to play the piano was just like a dream come true for me. Except over time, in my 20s, I tried to get married, didn't work out. Frankly, the reason it didn't work out is because there were multiple reasons, but that marriage didn't work out because I was poor and I was broke all the time and I was struggling and I was never home because I was always having to work because I was trying to get paid. I was trying to pursue my passion as my primary vocation in this world. You could say, well, certain passions, I don't know, if your passion is trading stocks, then that's probably a decent passion to pursue. If your passion is being a jazz musician, in almost any city in the world, there aren't a lot of cities where being a jazz musician is likely to pay you, unless you become an educator too and you get a teaching degree or whatever. There's ways to get to $100,000 a year as a jazz musician, but in general, that's probably a tough one that's going to correlate to enough money to be happy. That's one way to look at the question. Probably another way to look at the question is flip it and say, okay, well, what if I chase money? What if just pursuing money as an end, can that make me happy? Because according to Jeff and according to this Princeton study, basically as long as I make a certain amount of money, I'm going to have a maximum shot at being happy. So therefore I should just pursue money, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not a perfect formula either, because frankly, at a pragmatic level, most people who obsessively chase money don't actually really get that much money. That's the problem. Frankly, if making money was as easy as chasing money, then everybody would have money, right? Because we look around and we're like, well, the vast majority of people are chasing money, or if they had a more obvious way to go directly after money, they would do it. Clearly, it's not as simple as just deciding to go after money, right? So why is that? If pursuing our passion is, only a qualified yes as to whether or not it's a recipe for happiness, and then why shouldn't we just pursue money? Because apparently we need a certain amount of that, and then that's our best shot at happiness. Well, again, to some degree that's true, but the problem is you can't start a business with the goal of making money. You can't do it. There's social reasoning why this doesn't work. If people know that your primary goal in whatever you do is to make money, they won't want to work with you. They won't want to collaborate with you. They won't want to be your customers. What's one of the ickiest things we can say about a person? It just feels like all they're really focused on is making money, or they just want my money, right? That's not a complimentary thing to say. And people have pretty good radars for this, out for reasons of self-preservation. Like, we're pretty good at sniffing out people that are just in it for themselves. If you start a business, or frankly, you even start a job, and the only thing you're there to accomplish is to make money, pretty quickly your options are going to narrow, because the one thing that you're always going to require to be really successful is going to be other people. You can't be successful in a vacuum. You can't be successful on an island. You have to have collaboration. You have to have a network. And as soon as people sniff out that you're focused on money, they're not going to want to have anything to do with you, and you're not going to make money. So what this really speaks to is kind of a deeper principle that's frankly true whether you're pursuing your passion and trying to master something that's a passion, or you're pursuing money and trying to master the art of making money. In both cases, there's a component that's important to understand, that the harder you try, the less effective you're going to be. And in that sense, I don't think it's so much saying passion or money. It's more saying, how am I going to approach the question? There's something about just a relaxed, calm, confident way of being where you don't actually feel like you're chasing either. That's always going to be more potent than the hostile pursuit of either money or passion. And this derives from a principle called the law of reversed effort. There was a French psychologist named Émile Coué is the French pronunciation, and this was later popularized by an English philosopher named Alan Watts. That's actually where I first heard about it. But the law of reversed effort basically says this: when the imagination and the willpower are in conflict, it is always the imagination which wins, without any exception. So what that means is, and this is where you do get into like law of attraction, sort of metaphysical subconscious wiring, where basically you can try to will yourself to go after a thing, but your imagination, which in this case is kind of encompasses your subconscious, your self-identity, your id and your ego, and all the kind of like Freudian constructs of personality, like the big, I've got this iceberg behind me, right? Like all the stuff that's under the surface that you don't see, that's your subconscious. And it is so much bigger and so much more powerful than your cortex, your frontal cortex in your mind, where all the conscious processing happens. And so you can tell yourself that I'm going to go hard after this thing. But if you're fighting your imagination, your perspective, your view of the world, your view of your place in the world, over time, your imagination's always going to win. And so if you're having to fight, period, you're going to lose. The law of reversed effort, think about it as, have you ever been laying in bed and you're having trouble falling asleep? What's the worst thing you can do? Is to get in your head about how much you need to fall asleep. To quote, try and fall asleep. Alan Watts talks about a glass of water with sediment in it, right? How do you get the sediment or the particles to settle at the bottom of the water? There's nothing you can do to the water. You can't try to jiggle it and get the stuff to the bottom. Anything you try to do is going to just agitate the problem, right? What you have to do is just let it be. There's something in life about just letting it be. So whether it's your passion or your money, to me, isn't so much the question. It's how are you approaching whatever it is that you're doing? What I found is that there's a way you can actually dovetail these two together. Pursuing money, pursuing passion. You can dovetail these together by focusing on one thing. Focus on value. Whatever you're doing, don't focus on how passionate you are about it. Don't focus on how much money it pays. Focus on how much value you can create inside of whatever you're doing. And here's why this is so useful. If you're pursuing money, but you focus on how you can create value in the context of whatever you're doing, it's going to help you feel more passionate about whatever you're doing. I'll use a simple example. My dad was a money manager. My dad took money from other people and deployed it into investments so that he could earn commissions on the money. So he literally made money off of money. Like, it was a very money-centric business. But what he loved about it was the value that he created for his clients, the peace of mind, the confidence, the security, the knowledge and insight. He loved teaching, he loved sharing, he loved training, he loved all the ways that his service really helped people's quality of life. By focusing on the value he was creating, he found his passion in a very money-focused business. Now, similarly, if you're focused on passion, for me as a musician, if in my 20s I had gone to people and said, how can I create the most value for you through my music, I probably could have done better. And frankly, to the extent that I actually did pretty well, because I was able to support myself full time as a musician all through my 20s, which is, better than a lot of people do. It's mostly because I was finding ways that I could create value for people. Sitting in the corner at a restaurant where nobody's listening to you, you're tuned out, nobody can even hear you over the talking, and playing your original songs that nobody's ever heard and nobody cares about, that nobody can even hear anyways, that's not creating value. That you might be loving it and totally jamming out on these tunes that you spent hours creating, and you're singing the song of your soul and expressing yourself to the world, and nobody cares one bit. You're creating no value for anyone. But you go to an organization and say, hey, I hear you're holding a charity event and you're trying to raise $1 million to fund cancer research. What can my organization do? I have a group of talented musicians, but what we would like to do for you is create an environment where people are relaxed. You know, I'm pretty good on the mic. I'll get up and I'll remind people that there's an open bar and to make sure to keep their glasses full, because we all know that if they have an extra drink or two, they're more likely to give a little more to the cause, right? I'll do my part as an entertainer, as a producer of sound and sonic joy for the occasion. I'll do my part as a musician to create as much value for you as I can to help you pull off a successful charity event, right? How's that sound? You go to people that have value to exchange for the value you can help create, to create a non-zero sum win-win value proposition with your art, with your passion, whatever it is. Those are the best, and I did that. Those are the best paying gigs I ever had. I'd get paid a couple $1,000s to do certain things like that, as opposed to when I first started out as a musician and I was sitting with a keyboard in the corner of a restaurant playing for no one to listen to, and eventually the restaurant owner would feel sorry for me and he'd give me a plate of food instead of a paycheck. If you focus on creating value with your passion, you'll make more money. If you focus on creating value while you're making money, you'll have more passion. And the thing you got to realize is there's a lot of types of value. A lot of people think value is how much money or the price of things. You know, Oscar Wilde said, nowadays we live in a world, everyone knows the price of things and no one knows the value. There's a lot of different types of value. Value is knowledge. Value is a sense of security. Think about it. You may have a bill you pay every month just for monitoring for your home security system, right? They're not putting any money in your pocket. Neither is any insurance company that you pay to. There's value in security. There's value in energy and passion. Just you having passion that's contagious, having enthusiasm that's contagious is a form of value for people. Take it from me. I teach very boring stuff online about how to do affiliate marketing, or how to start a digital agency, or how to create digital courses, or how to start a e-com store. Like, it's not sexy stuff. It's just kind of technical online business stuff. But because I'm so enthusiastic and positive and passionate about what it can do for people's lives, I command premium prices. People perceive premium value in what I do and how I do it. There's a lot of different types of value. So again, if you're focused on creating value and all the different facets of value, you'll find that you pursue money more passionately and you pursue passion more profitably. I'd love to hear how you respond to that. If that gives you a path to proceed on that maybe you didn't see before, leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know if you have any questions, any way that I can help or steer you. I personally have a passion for helping people create a life in the new economy, which creating a life takes money, right? So part of my passion is helping people make more money. Hopefully this helps you do that. If you've enjoyed this video, again, give me a like. It helps me in the algorithm get the message out to more people. Subscribe to the channel if you like my content. And if you'd like to just learn more and go deeper into this world and this direction with your life, visit my site, millionairesecrets.com. You can subscribe to my podcast there, download my free ebook. I do have a free community group on Facebook that we would love to have you join. It's called Entre Nation, E-N-T-R-E Nation. Should be a link for that below as well. And I just thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.